Oh, this carpet is soaking wet. Well, today I'm going to show you how to diagnose where this water leak is coming from and also how to fix it. So let's get after it. This is my 2001 BMW E46 330i with an automatic transmission. This is the first BMW I picked up for 500 bucks, and I did the first 2 videos on my YouTube series about this car. I left it parking outside for a couple weeks while I was working on Brenda, my new 5-speed manual trans E46, and I went to remove the tint and the carpet was just soaking wet. So I went around to each piece of the carpet and I felt by hand down to see where the moisture was. So I checked and knew that that was wet. I came around here and checked the driver and passenger, and those were both dry. I checked the back left and that was dry. And this carpet sort of has some little curbs or humps that'll sort of prevent the water from wicking up to the other areas. So I know it's isolated to the rear right. Once I knew that it was isolated to the right rear, when I opened up the car to strip the window tint, I noticed some water pouring out of the bottom of the door. Now these doors have some plugs, and the plug was still in, although it was brittle and cracked and wanted to fall out and fall apart in my fingers. But the moral of the story was there was a lot of moisture inside this door, just like you can see maybe some evidence of some older moisture right here. Once I discovered that there was some water pooled up in the door, my theory was that that water was filling up and it was getting to the point where it was going to spill out past the vapor barrier because this plug was still intact, thus causing it to spill out around the seams and then into the carpet through the door seal. So other ways you can check is you can get inside the car and have someone spray the exterior with the garden hose. However, we're a one-man show today, so let's pull this door card off and see what's going on inside of it. Start by pulling this trim off. Pull this window switch. Okay, that's all our screws exposed. One here. And if you guys want the how-to on how to pull this door card off or do a window regulator, check out one of my latest videos. Hardware is out, all 5 screws. Pop these clips, work them around. Now we can push that down. There's water inside this push pin retainer right here. I just poured it out onto my hand. So there's definitely some water getting into behind this door panel. That's for sure. Let's take a look at this vapor barrier. It is completely unglued. It's completely unglued and it's got a bunch of moisture evidence down here. Let me get you a better view. So not only is this vapor barrier completely unglued, but check out the evidence of moisture on this bad boy. So if we peel this vapor barrier up and look down, it is wet down there in that seam. And I pulled the plug on the bottom. It kind of just deteriorated. But there is obvious moisture of sitting down there. So we're getting water penetration into the door. But beyond that, it was backing up and it was probably spilling out from this vapor barrier too. You can see some evidence of moisture right here on the paint as well. So this moisture barrier is really seeming like the culprit. Not to mention we can just lift and this thing comes completely unglued. So that was with no effort at all. This thing was barely even glued down. Let's get this vapor barrier fixed up. I think that's going to solve our issue here. There's nothing really holding this thing on besides the glue. There's no push pins or anything we need to remove, so I'm just going to get this vapor barrier cut out. You can tell someone's been in there. It's just poorly glued back on. I don't even have to cut it. It's just falling off. We've been getting a lot of rain here in Northern California too, and that rain's just been blowing in sideways every which way. And this thing was parked outside so I can get it out of my garage, because honestly it doesn't really deserve the garage right now. That 330i deserves the garage, and so does my diesel truck. But we got to get this water leak rectified before I let this thing sit out there any longer, because that carpet was gross and it was soaked. That's going to ruin a lot of hard work I put in on this car. So the vapor barrier's out. It pretty much cleaned a lot of itself up. I'm going to go through and just try to clean up some of these big spots, but mostly I'm just focused on this super old, tired dum-dum down here on this bottom seam. This is going to be our main focus, and I'm going to be a little bit more attentive with this sealing job. I'm going to try to get a lot of this cleaned off and maybe even prep the surface too, get some oils and just dirt off of it, because I do not want to have to go back in here and do this again, and I do not want any more moisture inside this car. Also, just a mid-video shout out to everybody that's been supporting the channel, subscribing, watching the videos. The support means the world, and it's given me the energy to continue and keep pushing on. So thanks again for checking things out. I got the best viewers in the world too, by the way. I'm not the best mechanic and I'm not perfect, but just the amount of cool, positive people and responses I get on these videos, man, it's something special. I'm going to use my pneumatic grinder with a Roloc, kind of a racer disc. This is a 3M Roloc bristle disc. So I'm just going to blast it with this and try to get the lower half pretty much cleaned up so I have a nice clean sealing surface for my new tape. Now, it didn't really hurt the paint. If anything, it just kind of melted that old butyl tape and flattened it out nicely, but it also gave it like a little bit of an adhesion, and so it's a little sticky, which is nice. It burned off that top layer and sort of just melted it into the head, which is fine by me. I didn't go at it too crazy. I was just using the residual pressure in my air compressor. So she's all dead now. But I think that's pretty solid. What I'm going to do is run over this just with a little bit of brake cleaner, just to maybe get any surface oils off, prep this surface a little bit. Then we're going to throw down some fresh dum-dum or butyl tape, get this thing sealed up nice. Just a little hitter of some brake cleaner on a rag. Throughout my years of using brake cleaner, I've also discovered that it sort of, gives previously adhesive things a little bit of their adhesion back. You take an old sticker or like an old suction cup and you hit it with some brake cleaner and it sort of melts that plastic a little bit. Sometimes it can kind of give it a little bit of second chance at life. So we're just going to clean this down, make sure there's no oil on top of it. We're just going to wipe this dum-dum layer that's on there now. We're going to just briefly hit the paint that's kind of around it on both sides too, and just sort of go over the whole area. This might not be perfect, but it should be plenty fine to keep this water sealed out. That vapor barrier was practically non-existent when we opened this door panel, so any improvement we can make is going to be very helpful. You can see the natural lines of where that door panel sits, so everything we touched and everything we did in here behind the door is never going to be visible. Not only that, but that Roloc disc didn't scratch the paint at all. It just sort of melted down the previous layer of dum-dum tape. As far as our door panel goes too, there's a little bit of dum-dum still left on it. It's really hard to get off once it's on. I'm going to do the same thing with this side, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a wipe with a solvent just to sort of help clean any oils, any debris that's on it, and get that off of the door panel, give it a little bit better chance at sealing. You can also see some like serious water stains down here. So I think that vapor barrier was folded out inside the door panel like this, and that rain was coming in through this window seal, through all these little cracks and joints on the door, or running down through these seams, getting into the door that way. And then it was just hitting this vapor barrier, running off, and then just hitting the inside of this door panel, and that door panel was just continuously leaking on the carpet. Ideally, too, you could buy new vapor barriers, and they're going to have a much better adhesive quality to them. And you'll have a real nice, tight car, but I'm not going to buy new vapor barriers for this car. I got 2 budget builds going, and buying new vapor barriers goes beyond the realm of budget build. So we're going to do the best with what we got and try to get a cheap dollar fix on it. I bought a roll of butyl tape from the auto parts store today for just over $11. Put an Amazon link for some butyl tape for the door seals in the description. So if you're curious about doing this on your own vehicle, it pretty much applies to every make and model. It's not just BMWs that have this behind. My Chevy truck has it too, and it's in real bad shape. I just went out there the other day and checked on the carpets on it too, because I was worried all my vehicles outside were getting water inside. My truck used to have a water leak, and it was coming through the third brake light. I'm actually helping my brother with that right now on his Toyota Tundra. And water leaks inside the cab just drive me crazy because, you know, they can be so catastrophic if left unnoticed. You can just get sopping wet carpet. All right, well, that vapor barrier is decently wiped down. I'm going to get some new tape up on the door, and we'll try to get this thing sealed back on. So here's our tape, Dum Dum or butyl tape. It's this thick adhesive gum. So we're just going to put a nice bead around and follow the old lines from the old stuff, and then try to get that vapor barrier sealed on real nice. It would be cool to hit this on with a heat gun too, but I don't have a heat gun right now. I'm just rocking the steamer. I'll have to invest in a heat gun for the future though, for sure, because it would be really nice to put the vapor barrier back on and then sort of heat it up with the new Dum Dum and sort of get it all to fuse together. I think that'd be a game changer, getting this thing to seal. And if it doesn't seal, I'll go back in and I'll fix it. So we're just going to take this butyl tape and we're just going to walk it around where we need it to go. I'm going to leave the paper on the outside this time so I can run around it with like a screwdriver handle or something and just get a real tight seal on this metal. Get that tape real glued on. Just trying to apply good smooth pressure along the full length of the tape. Now we can peel the tape on this bad boy. It's looking pretty good. Now this next part, we gotta hope for the best. We gotta hope this vapor barrier wants to seal on nicely. I think it will. Making note of any wires, like this wire comes through this first slot, this door cable comes through this one. Making sure we're mounting up any spots for hardware that need to go into the door. All right, so now we can start sealing down our vapor barrier. I'm gonna use the same technique as I did with applying the tape. I'm gonna take a smooth tool, like this little panel tool, and I'm just going to try to put some nice pressure and movement onto that vapor barrier anywhere I know that tape is. You just lay this stuff on, it's not going to glue. You got to put in a little bit of work for this tape to really work well. Tell you what, I'd rather do 10 of these vapor barriers than strip tin off another car. If you haven't saw that video, maybe go check it out. That's when I discovered this leak in real time. All right guys, I'm pretty happy with that. It feels nice and tight around all the seams. I cannot lift up on the vapor barrier where there is tape, so I'm real happy about that. I think we're good enough for the door panel to go back on. I don't think this is going to cause us any more grief. Besides a little bit of moisture, which is still in it, that's okay, that'll dry out. All our clips are there. Make sure all our body clips are there and not broken. We're good with that. All our pins for the trim are there too. So we're looking good. Let's work on getting this thing back on. So we got our window switch wire, which we need to run through there real quick. Plug our speaker back in. Our door handle. Slide our lock pin down through the hole. Get this thing lined up where it wants to go. Put those top clips in. Fit the door panel up. Give it a little wiggle. Feels good. Now we can throw our hardware back in. Nice, all 5 screws are in. Put our covers back on. Last but not least, trim goes back on. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. I think we're good to go, guys. I have seen this issue before. It's common on a lot of cars, a lot of trucks. It's something to keep in mind if you ever experience wet carpets. Trucks, always remember the third brake light up there behind the rear glass. It's just the most perfect spot for a leak, but you're gonna get that in the back seat areas. That is a wrap, folks. I'm gonna have the old lady spray the car off with me inside to make sure that leak is fixed and taken care of, but if you're seeing this video, it was successful. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. If you like the content, be sure to check out my channel. I got lots of other content like it. And until then, I will see you on my next day off.